Welcome to the Advisor Dads podcast, where we explore the intersection of family, finance, and decision making. Join us as we share insights from our experiences as financial advisors and dads, diving into strategies and tactics to help you navigate life's financial complexities with confidence. Ben Tusky is a private wealth advisor and the vice president of financial planning at SunPoint Investments, and Dave Rath is a wealth advisor and the chief investment officer at Continuum Wealth Advisors. The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of SunPoint Investments or Continuum Wealth Advisors. No information on this podcast should be construed as investment advice. Securities or strategies discussed may be holdings or recommendations for clients of SunPoint Investments or Continuum Wealth Advisors. Now, onto the show.
We are back with another episode of the Advisor Dads, where you come for the personal finance and you stay for the dad jokes. I am David Rath. I'm here with my co-host, Ben Tusky. Got the pronunciation down. Ben, how's it going?
Going well. We missed it. I messed up the recording. You guys would have heard Dave say my last name differently, and I never was going to correct you for the record. I was going to let you just keep going on. And honestly, that's a better pronunciation than like if I get a random like cold call or something like that. People like put letters in there. Tuscan there's no N in my last name, but Tuscan is a very popular enunciation of my name, but it's Tusky.
I get Roth. I get Roth all the time.
Which is crazy because like your name should be so easy to say.
Yeah. I also confuse people because on my social media stuff, I use a W, even though my name isn't spelled with a W, just to eliminate any sort of confusion. Like that's how you pronounce it, is like the word for anger. Just take off the W in the front.
You have to add another letter to show people how to pronounce your name. Like that's where we're at now.
Yeah, welcome to the English language.
That is it for us. Episode 3. We're not going to lose this one either. We're not going to have to redo this, but an interesting starting spot, I think, for us. And if you're just joining us for the first time, we're two advisor dads. We talk about things that we experience in our professional lives, which is kind of the gamut, and related to the things that we see and experience in our personal lives, how we are as dads, as husbands. We have to manage quite a bit with young kids, and it's not an easy balance at all times. And we're here to have that open discussion and just how we think about things and we manage our household.
Yeah, as I like to say, it's the intersection of family and finances.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant to say. That's why you're here. In an interesting post, Dave actually sent it to me today. Samantha Russell, who is, I think everybody would agree, is just like one of the GOATs when it comes to all things online, social media. I've attended a bunch of her webinars, and just like the snippets that you get out of there and the tweaks that you can make. And I primarily on LinkedIn, and now that we do the podcast here that's on YouTube, I'm learning a ton on YouTube. But she had an interesting post that I honestly I haven't really experienced much travel with my kids. So have you traveled with the boys? Like, have you done anything on a flight before?
I could fill a few episodes talking about my experiences with my kids, and they're not all good. And so, yeah, we'll save that for a different episode. But yeah, it's traveling with kids is, I like to say, it's like swinging a bat with a donut on it. When you make the bat heavier, and then if you ever travel by yourself, it's like taking the donut off, and it's just like, oh my God, this is so easy. Like when you don't have the kids around, like I don't have to watch where these two young children are at all times. I don't have to be on alert. I can just sit in this chair and read my book.
It's fascinating. So I've never done a plane, and in her post, it's like to give background for anybody who hasn't seen it. It talks about just strategies as a parent to try to influence good behavior out of your children, and setting up a small reward system for money that they can spend while on the trip for good behavior at dinner, traveling on the plane, things like that. Just the areas where traditionally you want good behavior, obviously while being conscious of like, hey, I have an almost 4-year-old and an almost 6-year-old. Like, you're not going to get quiet and good behavior the entire time. So also the abbreviations to the plan of like, okay, they just earn a little bit less of a reward, even though that they had some outbursts at dinner, or this and that happened on the plane. Because the reality is you have to build in those expectations. And probably the best expectation is just know that it's going to be a crapshoot the entire time that you're trying to travel and do stuff. But what's you see that overview, Dave? What do you think from your travel days that are continuing to expand with two kids?
I thought what was interesting was how she initially framed it and kind of expecting pushback from parents, because the basic idea was you set up a monetary reward system for your kids, and if they behave as you would hope that they would or that you expect them to, they get some sort of monetary reward at the end of the trip. And I'll say that whatever works, right? You don't want to judge other parents based on what they're doing or not doing, as long as you all have kind of the common goal in mind, which is well-behaved kids. And honestly, the added bonus of having a, the teachable moment about money and behavior at the same time, you're accomplishing two things at once. We use similar system in the house for doing chores or doing things that are expected of them at certain ages. We have like a star rewards based system. So if they get 35 stars, which it's easy to get a star, like pick up your laundry, eat all your food, that kind of stuff, for every 35 stars they get $1 in their piggy bank. And so it is a nice way to score everything and get them focused on whatever the tasks are. And then we also teach them about money on the other end, where if they want something, we can say you can buy it from your piggy bank, and they are learning the value of doing the right thing and working towards a goal at the same time getting money for it. But I think some parents would look down upon that and just say, you need to discipline your kids better. They need to listen to you. So I don't have any time for those kind of parents, because we're all in the we're all in the deep end together, and we want to do whatever works as long as the ultimate goal is raising well-behaved children who turn into good adults.
How does the totally agree. How does it work then? All right, the boys get the money in their piggy banks. How do they do with like managing? Obviously, we're not talking about managing in the traditional sense, but like, how do they do with like spending it? Because polar opposites in our house.
Yeah.
But how do they do with what's there?
I was going to say, when managing it, they just buy some cheap index funds. They do the smart thing. But no, so actually we just had an instance of this where my 4-year-old, he gets 30 minutes of tablet time per day after school if he was well behaved during daycare. And there was a game that it's just a Mario, I should say. I realized I was pronouncing that one wrong my entire life. He has a Mario game that he was playing, and there was an extra $10 to buy some more levels. And so he's like, I want to get these levels. And I said, you can pay for it out of your piggy bank. So he agreed, and I put it on the credit card, and he gave me $10. So obviously not the $10 that matters. It's the idea of using money that he's worked for to get some sort of benefit for him on the back end.
See, I love monetary rewards. It can't be for like everything, and like obviously then striking the balance between what's a monetary reward and like what's just like you being a parent. And I think that that's probably a balance that Mary Kate and I don't know if we ever get right. Either we feel like we're buying them way too much stuff, spending way too much money on them, and then when we do like, okay, you have money in your piggy bank. So like Avery, she'll go to like take the money out of her piggy bank, and she'll be like, she always like makes this face. She's like, I don't need it. I don't need it. And you're always like, oh, okay, wow, this is like, James could rip the head off that piggy bank, empty the whole thing into your hand, and say like he doesn't care.
He's got the sledgehammer ready. He's ready to break it.
he's ready. And granted, he's like 3 going on 4, so like they have a little bit different concept. But what we've done is like when they get money as like gifts and stuff, well, most of it we take for like long-term investing side of things, but we'll always like break off a piece that goes in the piggy bank. And Mary Kate or I will say like, if you want that thing, we'll split it with you. It's 50-50. Okay, you wanted that baby doll from Target that's $12.99. Like, okay, like Your half of this is 650. And we like, I said to my wife, like, hey, we have to collect the money. Is the money going to get used on them again in the future? Yeah, sure, obviously. But we have to do the transaction. So she has to have that feeling of, I traded this for that. And not do I think that this is going to be some crazy long-term revolutionary thing, but it does, I know, start to build the concept around money. I read a book a long time ago that was Beyond Piggy Banks and Lemonade Stands. And it was giving the idea that as young as like 2 and 3, you could start these money concepts. And it's not investing. It's just, hey, what is a quarter? Like, what is the value of that? And everything we do today is on plastic, so it's hard for kids to see you pull out and count money. It was talking about those points of differentiation that like our generation faced. I always saw my parents didn't use credit cards that often. It was always in cash. So our kids have like a little bit disconnected from that, and the card is a bit of a facade. Like, you just swipe that thing, or you're clicking on Amazon and it shows up for you. But it has been letting them share in the cost. We feel like has been a big advantage, and Avery has certainly picked up many lessons there.
And my wife Monique, she mentioned this to me because she said she feels sometimes like a bad mom because she's making her son pay for something. And it's, as you said, the money is going to go funneled back to them anyway. It's just the idea of them learning the value of a dollar and learning the value of hard work that gets them those dollars. So then they can start to piece things together. And I wasn't necessarily planning on talking about this when we were workshopping before the episode, but do you talk to your kids about money that you have, money that you make? How do you approach that?
We do. We talk like openly. So like Mary Kate and I don't have like when we have our like bi-weekly budget conversation, it's not like we have the kids sit around for the conversation for us to do it. But it will be something in the future as they get older. Like, the plan is for them to sit in on that and just know, how do mom and dad do it? And as of today, though, we don't talk like hard figures, but we talk a lot about what things cost. You're doing gymnastics, you're doing dance. Like, we have an increasing, like, the easy conversation is we have an increasing homeless population kind of in our area. And so we've had to explain the concept of homelessness. And wake up this morning, it's 4 degrees outside. That's when like we're having some of those like value based around money conversations of like, not everybody gets what you get. And that's not to say that you should feel bad for what you have or what your parents provide you, but we have started the conversations of like, they want to play tennis, they want to play baseball, they want to play lacrosse. I also want to dance and do karate. It's like, we've started to like, that's the activities, and then society around us is where we started to like structure some of the conversations with the kids.
I grew up in a house that my parents played everything very close to the vest. And
Mm.
so never knew how much my parents made. I would say if we were classified, we were probably lower middle class, where we had the same pair of shoes for the entire school year. And if things broke, then we just had to make do with it, that kind of stuff. And I've changed the script a little bit with my kids, and I talk to them about money. I show them how much is in their UTMA or their 529 and talk to them about what it's being used for, why we're saving it. And I also tell them that you shouldn't really volunteer how much you see on a screen. So what the number that you see on the screen, you shouldn't just volunteer that information to somebody else, because you might make that person feel bad that
Yep.
they have less than you. And that's not really what the idea is behind all of this. We want to make you appreciate what you do have, but you also don't want to make somebody else feel bad if they don't end up having as much as you, because as we know, money is just a tool for something else. It's not, as much as we use it as a scorecard, it shouldn't be that way. And especially we don't want it to be that way when they're in their formative years and learning about social status and all that stuff. We don't want them to be using money as that. So every time I show him or we talk about it, I say, you don't tell somebody about this unless, you're having a conversation when you're older and they're asking, how much do you have saved away? Like, feel free to let on whatever you want to, but don't go out there telling everybody how much money you have in your account.
Yeah, and it's a really good lesson because I've been a part of so many of the conversations that I just feel like there's only two outcomes when somebody asks you how much money you have. And it's either they're going to leave that conversation feeling horrible because they're behind in some arbitrary savings rate guideline that they read online and that what you have, they're going to compare to you, who doesn't matter. Or you're going to say this number and they're going to be like, that's it? What is this moron doing? Like,
Yeah.
you know how to say? And because there's no scale in the middle or there's nothing in the middle of that scale, it serves no purpose. Like knowing that information, it serves no purpose. Like you're not going to do anything with that. And I've been asked, like drinking at holiday parties, and people are like, "Yeah, like what do you have put away for like retirement at this point? Who cares?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's not my number is not going to affect you." And being at a holiday party, I am pretty young. Was really fortunate for what Vanguard did for me, especially for the 401k package that I had there. They did most of the savings. So like if you know my number, you're going to just immediately feel bad that I'm young and I have that much put away. Like it's there's no good in that conversation. So like let's not do it.
You
And
remember
yeah, to
those
your
old
point.
commercials where people, they had like the big orange numbers that they walked around with, like that was like their nest egg or their net worth was just this big number that they walked around so everybody could see it. That would be such an awful society,
Oh my God.
right?
Horrible. It would be horrible. Like that's what you're judged based on. And yeah, and I don't and maybe as I've gotten older, I've really moved away from like even caring about any of that stuff and just, you're at family functions or out like at a bar and people are like, "Oh yeah, their family's like really wealthy. Like you should," dude, I don't like I don't care. Are they interesting to talk to? Or like are we gonna have like a good relationship? Like I don't like money. Who cares? I'd rather hang out with people that some of my closest friends, you know, don't have a ton of money. And they're just like the greatest, most giving people, great role models for my kids. Like that's the stuff that really matters.
100% agree on that. Anything else related to the idea of rewarding your children monetarily for good behavior? I think we've talked about the balance that you have to strike between the two, but I think the overarching theme is don't judge other parents based on how they parent, as long as the common goal is the same, and setting up some sort of structure where you're showing the value of money and hopefully rewarding good behavior. That's killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. Then even maybe the last point I'll bring up is like when you're out at the restaurant and kids have tablets. We don't bring tablets to a restaurant. And my wife is always like, "Well, like I'm like, you have no idea what day they just had." We would do it. Like if we had one of those days and we just needed us like, "Hey, we got to get out of the house here." You have no clue what's going on over there. And that may be the 45 minutes of peace that those two parents get or that mom or dad gets by themselves. I Good for them. Good if that's what you're doing, good for you. And if you're not, also good for you. You have a system that works for you, and at some point or another, you're going to do something that's for your benefit, for your kid's detriment. And that's the life of being a parent. And that's the life of being a human. And like, yeah, judging people for that stuff is just another losing game. Like what do you like what do you want to hear that you're doing better, you're making a better decision than them? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Now what?
That's a good life lesson in general. You have no idea what's going on in other people's lives. And
Right.
so focus on yourself, focus on the things that you can control. Don't judge other people because you don't know the day that they just had, the life that they're living, the stress that they have.
Yeah,
And everybody's just I would say most people are just trying to do the best that they can and whatever works for them.
absolutely. Absolutely. In the same switching to same Family Gear. I think I've been listening to more of this type of maybe even podcast, YouTube stuff, is balancing being a parent and your professional life, but also being into fitness and like trying to take care of yourself and trying to have like not just like me time, but me time related to the prior conversation we just had of like, how am I showing and being a good example for my kids and showing the health benefits to staying in shape and lifting weights and metabolic conditioning and things like that. How what's give me your like approach to maybe not all of it, but like what's your philosophy here?
I have to wake up early. You can't do it like at the end of the day when you're tired and you're making dinner and you're putting the kids to bed. So the biggest thing for me since becoming a father to stay up to speed on my fitness and to make sure that I'm showing a good example to my kids is I had to sacrifice a lot of stuff to be able to wake up early to get my workouts in because otherwise you just go in this downward spiral of eating terribly, saying that you're going to work out after dinner. It never happens. And as a result, I mean, the college football playoffs are a good example. I have not watched 1 second of the college football playoffs because I need to pick and choose the times that I'm taking away from my normal routine. And for right now, it's just basically my favorite football team, which is the Giants. They play 17 times a year since they don't make the playoffs. And that's the time that I give myself. And so last night, the semifinals was on and I didn't stay up to watch a second of it because I knew I wanted to wake up early this morning and work out. And so had to sacrifice a bunch in order to continue keeping myself healthy. And when we were at a Future Proof, I sat in on Phil Pearlman's talk, and he said, taking care of yourself obviously is a good thing for your own benefit, but it also allows you to avoid the finger wagging and telling people that you should do this while I'm not taking care of myself. So if you're trying to set a good example for your children about taking care of your body and being healthy, and you're sitting there just crushing potato chips and beers and putting on 50 pounds, what are they going to think? They're going to model your behavior instead of what you're saying.
Yeah. I what is it Nietzsche has that line that's if you think somebody's screwed your life up, you're right. It's you. And like it's it's the accountability aspect of it. And so I did the morning routine for a while. So I work out at home because my wife's an ER nurse and she goes to Orange Theory. I give her a ton of credit. She gets up at like 3:50 in the morning.
My wife too.
Yeah, it's like
She does the Orange Theory thing.
I don't know how they do it at that hour. Like it's insane, but an Orange Theory is just spectacular. It's you go in, you don't have to think about anything. The program's already set. Like you're just gonna sweat, feel like you're gonna die for like 45 minutes straight, and then feel excellent the rest of the day and get incredible results. But the I was working out in the morning, but when I'm the only one home in the morning, I'd bring the monitor downstairs when the kids were younger and we had the monitors still in their rooms. So then it was like, all right, I can work out with one headphone on because I got to be able to hear and like keep checking in on the monitor. And then it was like once, we didn't need the monitor for Avery anymore, it was like, okay, then I can't work out with any headphones on because I gotta have to be able to hear. And I don't know about you, but I am a headphone on workout. Like I can't do any of it, run, lift weights. I have to have headphones on. And it became really challenging. But I stuck with it, like, hey, listen, I'll just have music on lower volume and that's fine. I found the real issue was when one of the kids would get up at like 5:45 and I would have to go put them back into bed and I'm like dripping in sweat. And like you're right in the middle of like your squat program or you're like benching. So now you need to go upstairs, quiet your kid back down, get him back into bed, and now pick back up. Like your body has cooled down. Now you need to I have to re-warm up. So drop the weights back down and re-warm up. And I immediately would feel like like the workout was ruined. And it's now it's pivoted me to, hey, at 12 o'clock, nobody's here. I block my schedule every single day. Now I have to give that up from time to time, which I had to do in the morning too sometimes. But I think the philosophy that I've pivoted to, and I can't remember where I heard this idea, but having a floor and a ceiling and saying to myself, like every day I have a floor and a ceiling. If everything works out that I can do my full workout for 45 minutes at 12 o'clock, I'm going to do it. But if this meeting comes up, there's a snow day at school, we just had this on Monday. School calls somebody's sick. Like, have your floor. What's the minimum that I'm going to do that day? I can do 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups. I can spend 10 minutes doing that. That's my floor. That is a bare minimum that I have to do on that day. Now, if I can get anywhere else in that spectrum, that's excellent. Anything else I can do is better for me. And I think it's just helped me mentally accept that there's so much deviation, things out of my control. I can't sit there and get all bent out of shape about this stuff. I didn't get the best squat day in because I got a phone call or something happened out of my control. It's like, yeah, it's tough, but I'm with you. At night will never happen. Will not happen. Like it's like get the kids down, dinner cleaned up, school stuff ready for the next day. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm
Yeah.
not working out.
Half the time I'm falling asleep in their
Yeah,
beds as I'm putting them to
yeah,
bed.
yeah. I feel I there's a few times where you're like, if Mary Kate didn't walk in to like tap me like, hey, it's like, oh yeah, no, everything's I wasn't asleep. I was
This
asleep.
must have been during your time when you were working out in the morning, but I before we really knew each other, we were connected on social media and you posted a video of yourself hitting a new personal record for your deadlift and I commented on it and said is the perfect encapsulation of a dad moment where you just pulled a new personal best for your deadlift, but before you dropped the weight, you looked to your left to make sure that no kids had come downstairs before you dropped it.
Yep.
Like you're just it's always on your mind. You're always like thinking of the worst thing that can happen. So here you are holding a ridiculous amount of weight in your hands and you're just first making sure that your kids didn't come downstairs and you drop it on them.
Yeah, it's actually harder when they're in the basement because there's a lot of times where I work out at home. My wife's at work, it's a weekend, and I work out with them in the basement. And I do feel there's times where they'll like jump in on the workout. They'll like, they're doing burpees. I'm like dying on the ground doing burpees. But it has, now that the kids have gotten older, it's less terrifying that somebody's going to walk in like while I'm squatting. God forbid I get stuck in a squat and I have to like dump the bar. I just like, it's those things that like just can't happen with the kids in the basement. Unfortunately, I'm in a separate room, but it's I always tell my older brother Dante, who's like him and his wife are big into fitness, and I always say it's a motivation PR. Like I hit a bench PR with my kids in the basement because I knew I can't fail. Like if I fail, like they're gonna watch dad
Yeah.
stuck under 225. Like it's just it's either you put it up or there's a big problem. And he was like, dude, you can't do that. Like you have to stop doing that. But yeah, it's a journey. And
And then at one point they're going to be able to spot you and then you're just going
yeah,
to crush all your
that's
peers.
that's gonna be an excellent day where I have a spot that I haven't had. Or we'll be able to go back to a gym at some point in the not so distant future, which will be excellent as well.
Yeah. So I think the big takeaway is you find a time that works for you and your schedule. You probably have to sacrifice some stuff to do it, but it the benefits are going to be twofold where you're obviously taking care of yourself and then you're also setting an example for your kids. I don't know if you've ever read it, but Jocko Willink's book, The Way of the Warrior Kid. Have you ever read that for your kids?
Now I've listened to some of the podcasts where he has like he does it with a kid or kids. It's pretty fascinating.
It's such a good book to tell kids about the idea of being self-reliant, of taking care of yourself in a fitness capacity, in education. And part of it, he talks about doing pull-ups and training jujitsu and all of the things that build the self-confidence in your kid. And I read that for my oldest son, Daniel. And the day after, he wanted to start doing pull-ups with me. And so I'm like, okay, let's jump on the bar. Let's see how long you can hang up there. So it is, I would definitely recommend that to anybody that kind of wants to get their kid going and get them off the couch or get them away from the tablets or whatever it
Yeah.
is, because sometimes it's better if you hear something through a narrative that's told through a story versus your parent telling you this is what you should be doing. And of course, he's not young enough to be lifting weights or anything, but just planting that seed early about the importance of staying healthy and taking care of your body.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know if one of the dads in the neighborhood is a veteran and his son shows up to the bus stop. It's like 16 degrees outside in a t-shirt. And I don't know if he's like read some David Goggins stuff or been watching Goggins, but like he's doing push-ups at the bus stop. And he's like the the guy Brad is always like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like I don't know where this came from, but he's like up in his room hammering out push-ups all day. It's like, yeah, I mean, good for him. It's like he'll show up in a t-shirt. I'm like, Brad, t-shirt, 16 degrees. He was like, I don't know. I don't know. And he's like, I think he's in fourth grade. So it's like he's at that age where it's like, hey, you can deal with the consequences. You know it's cold outside. You're going to pay the price. Now he's in sweatshirt and sweatpants. I think he's paid the price a couple times. But I don't know if that's like the books that they read, but that's how kids typically pick it up from an outside source, or they listen to anybody listens better to somebody else than their parents. So that's one that I'll have to check out because I feel like that's something that like Avery and James would probably latch on to.
Does Avery read books on her own yet?
She's like started to. She's really interested in school. So, and she's always been a little bit ahead of the curve academically, now athletically, not so much, but she does. She has been reading like she'll read like a couple pages a night of these like entry level books, like level 1 books I think they call them. So, yeah, it's really early on.
Yeah, Daniel's really latched onto reading, and he's quite adept at it. And posted something on my Instagram with him reading a book, and my friend who just had a kid said, how do you get your kid interested in? Because I want my kid when he grows up to be able to read books.
Yeah.
And I told him that especially in front of my children, I try to read physical books because again, they're mirroring what you're doing from an
Right.
action versus words. If I'm on my iPad reading a Kindle, it looks like I'm playing on a tablet.
Yeah, yeah.
So I try to read the physical books in front of them just to set that example of reading. We should be doing it in our free time. There's a lot of stuff that it's out there other that you can be doing otherwise, and he's really taken to it. My younger guy, I don't think I'll ever get him. He has been obsessed with electronics since he was a baby. I'm not even kidding you. He used to send messages to my friends from my Apple Watch as I was changing his diaper at like 6 months old. So he's obsessed with electronics, and I don't know if I'll get him into reading, but at least I batting 500, got my older one in.
Yeah, that's I would take that any day of the week. And listen, maybe you'll have like some tech guru coming with being on the technology at 6 months old. Like I got to be optimistic about this.
Well, I do agree with that, and I want to lean into helping him go down that path of being a coder or something. But
Yeah.
so funny story. I kind of teased it in our conversation back and forth this morning, but last night he's on his 30 minutes of tablet. My younger one, 4 years old, he's on his 30 minutes of tablet, and I'm watching a TV show, and out of nowhere, he just goes, "Effing weirdo."
Oh my
So
God. Like,
I
what
look
did you
over at him.
say?
I said, "What did you say?" He goes, "Effing weirdo," but he's using the full word. And I said,
Oh, he said the actual
"Oh
word.
yeah." I don't know. This is a family
Oh,
friendly podcast, so we're keeping it
we're
PG.
keeping it that way. Yeah.
I said, "Who said that?" He goes, "I did." No, I said, "No. Where did you learn that?" And he goes, "Nowhere." So I told his teacher at daycare this morning. She goes, "Oh, I know exactly where he learned that from." And she goes, "He's not the type of kid to tell on his friends, though." I was like, "Okay, I guess,
Loyalty.
no snitching," but it was just so out of left field because he was just playing this game and he dropped it perfectly like he'd been saying it for years. So it's always fun when your kids discover the curse words because we don't curse in front of them in the house. We actually very rarely curse in the house even without them around. But yeah, it was a shock last night.
There's also there's something about a 4-year-old cursing that it's hilarious. And I mean, it's not nearly as funny when it's somebody else's kid. Like when it's somebody else's kid, that's the 10 out of 10 funny. When it's your kid, it's like a 3 out of 10 funny because like it's funny, but now you have the problem of like I need to have this conversation and we need to never use the word again. Our kids were using that F word like incorrectly. So not it wasn't in the wrong context. They were just putting an A on the end of it. And I had told Mary Kate, I was like, I have to correct like I've got you're using the word wrong. So I had to like sit them down and be like, all right, the word is this. And you are never to say it. And she was like, my wife was like, do you think this is gonna work? And so far nobody said it again.
But
But I
if
was
you
like,
are going to use it, make sure you're
yeah,
pronouncing it
you
correctly.
pronounce it right. Come on, you're making me look bad. And like we can't have that. So yeah, that's pretty funny. All right, I know we're running up against time here. I'm gonna save. I know we had two other things to get to. We could save one of those two of them for the next episode, but I'll let you decide where we go next.
Now you pick the one, we'll talk about it, and then save the other one.
All right. I we've talked a lot of family. We're gonna talk summer camps next time because
Okay.
that's looming in this household right now. But the one we'll go to the finance side of things for a second. That I know that we always say that hey, we'll bring topics that we get asked about by prospects, clients, family, friends, all that stuff. Things that you're probably going to see on social media and you always wonder, can I do this or like should I do this? So there's this idea around whole life insurance. And if you're unfamiliar with whole life insurance, it is you're buying a policy that is going to cover you for your entire life as long as you pay the premiums for it. Now, while you're paying the premium, you are somewhat overpaying to establish what's known as cash value. So, right there in the concept, you are overpaying the policy to build cash value. Now, that cash value has a connection to some instrument that's going to provide interest. How much or how little depends on the policy, the company, how much risk is being taken inside of that. There's a whole host of factors that are there. So, I was asked, and this is really popular on social media now, is the phrase be your own bank. And the idea there is you buy this whole life policy, you put in as much money as you can to this whole life policy, and you build up the cash value, and the money is going to compound and grow as it would in many other investment vehicles. But investments and insurance, in my opinion, are two different things. And I don't think I've ever recommended that gets blended together. But that's where this concept comes into play because then what you're doing then is you're taking a loan against that money, against the cash value that comes out tax and penalty free for you to go. And the best thing that they always talk about in the videos is you go buy real estate, passive cash flow, best investment ever, no risk. And I got asked about it, and it was really after the fact. They had already actually started to engage an insurance broker, and they bought these policies, and they're putting money into it. And this conversation happened like a month and a half ago, just right at the beginning of December. And I was, I'm too late to the game. You've already bought these policies. The fascinating thing is how one social media can get somebody to action so quickly without all of the information. And explaining the downside of this, because what the reality is you could just buy a term policy, something that expires. You need it for the life insurance purpose. You need to transfer the risk from your life onto an insurance company that's going to pay out if you're not here anymore. Take care of your family, your responsibilities. We use term a lot in our practice, exclusively pretty much, unless it's for an estate planning need. You could use the term and then you could invest the rest. If you need the money from that investment, you have it. It's in a brokerage account. You may have to pay a little bit of tax, but you have maximum liquidity there as you would, but you're not overpaying into this cash value that you really don't have a lot of control over because it's going into a general account. I don't know if you've run into this before, Dave, but my take on it is I'm like a 99% no, 1% yes. And I only leave 1% out there is because there could be this one super rare scenario that I don't know about that could happen. But one, have you seen it? I'm sure you've seen the social media stuff on it. But and two, what's like your perspective here?
So the selling point, of course, is the be your own bank. That's what we're talking about here. And yes, it is nice to be able to access some money that you can have readily available for you versus going to a home equity loan or something where you need to tap into that. But as you mentioned, the other side of it is you just have that money saved in a brokerage account or a savings account and readily accessible. Michael Kitces talks about this pretty in depth when you are accessing that money. If you're taking a loan against a policy, the selling point is that you're just basically taking a loan from yourself and not necessarily you're taking a loan from the insurance company that's backed by the collateral of the cash value in your policy.
Right.
So that needs to be very clear up front. The other thing that isn't necessarily discussed with these policies is the idea that it takes a while to build up your cash value. To anything where if you have grand ambitions of real estate purchases, that's going to be a long time of you building cash value that, as you mentioned, opportunity cost of putting money, if you need the insurance, you put the money in some sort of term policy that's going to cover you over a stated period of time. You put the rest of it, the balance, into something that's going to be able to grow, be invested, or even if it's just a safe savings account, you can have the access to that money. And I think that it there are, and you're 99%. I'm probably a little bit further towards the middle because we've talked about this before. It was either me and you or somebody else where we were discussing planning for the idea of a pension in the future, where usually these people that are eligible for a pension, they get to age 60 and an insurance broker knocks on their door and says, you should really think about this whole life policy so you can take the pension maximum. You can get the maximum amount of money from your pension by taking the single life option, and then your spouse is covered with the insurance. That, in my opinion, is too late in the game because your premiums are prohibitively high. But if somebody is in a job where they have a pension available to them and they plan on being with that job for a while, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to get a whole life policy established when they're younger to allow that to grow. And now then you are able to maximize that pension value by taking that single life annuity. And there's other tax implications. You mentioned the estate planning. There's other things that go into it. But the insurance industry as a whole has really latched on to that be your own bank idea, and it's not 100% forthcoming because they don't talk about the time it takes to build the cash value. They don't talk about the fact that you're just really taking a loan out that's collateralized by your cash value. All of those get lost in the wash because they're just like, hey, you can access the cash value in your policy at any time. Great, but that's not necessarily the reason to do it. Like having a savings account that you're able to draw on, that is much more beneficial versus the cash value in a policy. And I'm with you on, usually you don't mix the investments and the insurance. Those are two separate entities. The blending of the two, now you start to get your wires crossed, the waters become a little bit murkier.
Yeah. The pension idea is that we're actually working on this for clients that are getting ready to head off into retirement, and like they both have pensions, and his pension with the survivor benefit is like $53 a year less than if he just does like the option A, a single life. So like in that scenario, like that's where it pays to just say, hey, we got to read the fine print of this pension, because then you look at hers and it's like 50% difference. So in that scenario, it'd be like, okay, well then she should definitely have a whole life policy and take the single life option A. And yeah, if you can start funding that at 35, versus 60. I mean, what's the premium going to be on a $300,000-$400,000 life insurance policy at 60 years old for whole
Yeah,
life?
it's
Yeah,
it's
it's going to
ridiculously
eat the whole
high.
pension.
Yeah.
So you then what are you're trading one for the other at that point, and timing is really important. And I think fully understanding, and this is where consulting somebody that's outside of that industry is can be really, really impactful. To just another benefit of having an advisor, like, hey, objectively, what do you think about this? I'm sure you've seen this in the past. That's a good assumption to have with an advisor. We get to see a lot in our day to day. We get asked lots of questions. We have to do a lot of research. What is your thought on this? And what is your thought, most importantly, to my plan, how it relates to my life? Be Your Own Bank could be great for somebody. It's a tool at the end of the day. But I found that for most people, it's just not the right tool for what they're looking to accomplish.
And I think that's the big takeaway is it absolutely makes sense for certain people, but we talk about incentives and tying this back to the incentives we talked about with our kids. There's a financial incentive for that person to put a more expensive policy in front of you because they get paid more. They're going to do it every single time. And that's not to say that we as advisors, that obviously it makes sense if somebody invests their money with us. We get paid through that. We want to be fiduciaries. We want to be doing the right thing for our clients based on their situation, not based on the fact that we're going to get a nice sugar rush, a nice sugar high of getting a fat commission check up front from selling a product. And I think that's the big takeaway is you're doing something where the fees are transparent and upfront, and this is what we're charging to manage money for. This is the suite of services that you get for that fee, versus I don't think people really understand how much an insurance agent gets paid when it comes to their policies. And not to say that people shouldn't work in the insurance industry and get paid for putting these products in front of people, but I think the clientele would be better served if they understood really what those dollars and cents look like.
Totally agree. Totally agree. All right. Episode 3 in the books. Be out soon.
We'll be
Dave,
back
thanks so much.
2 weeks. Hopefully, Ben, he's the tech guy. He's going to start chopping this up, putting it out on all the channels, and we'll talk to you guys later.